Okay, part 4 of this 5-part presentation, Dragon Bone Broth. I mentioned the evolution of yoga and the yoga of evolution as one of several themes that go through both I, the Dragon, and Words of Power. And another one of those themes, overarching themes really, is the ascendancy of the feminine, which I've written about and spoken about in many different ways. Its importance in my journey, my healing journey, and my understanding of the nature of my own life and reality and human evolution, for what it's worth. But in this particular talk, I want to focus on the problem of men and offer some radical remedies. Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen this Gillette commercial about questioning toxic masculinity. If you haven't, I encourage you to, and you can Google Gillette commercial toxic masculinity, and if you're you have to make your way through the raving, threatened white male reaction to the commercial, but just look for the commercial itself and view it and reach your own conclusions. And then this just began airing a few weeks ago. Really, the stories about it is from January, and then also in January, the American Psychological Association released a kind of important study about traditional notions of masculinity marked by stoicism, competitiveness, aggression are clearly toxic to both men and women. And they've done a study, the obvious, men commit 90% of homicides in the United States, 3.5 times more likely than women to die of suicide, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a political issue, it's a social issue, it's a psychological issue, it's a health issue, a mental health issue, it's an issue in human relationships, an issue in the realm of human love, and it is also an evolutionary issue. It's a problem, a challenge of evolutionary dimensions, right? So this is this image, and if I pull away, maybe you'll be able to see it. It's an image of Adhanari. You'll read Adhanari described as half Shiva, half Sita, half Shiva, half Shakti, right? Half male, half female. And it's a powerful image. I have written some about Adhanari, and the last thing, I think it's the last thing I'm going to read tonight, is actually also is about Adhanari. Yeah. And I will read you that, and then we'll talk about a few things. Yeah. From Words of Power. In the psyche of each person, there are two halves. Both must be understood and healed. In each person, these two halves dance with each other in different ways, and each of these dances is a unique expression within the oneness of it all. This is why I invoke the name and image of Adhanari, half man, half woman, as part of this exposition. Half Shiva, half Shakti, half male, half female, not split down the middle, not split down the middle, integrated down the middle, one body, one being. He, she is known by other names, Adinashvara, Nara, Nari, and a few other variations on it are found in the statues and paintings all over India, but it is something of a sideshow and it's not very well known in the West. Of course, Ardnari could no doubt is in fact of great solace to LGBTQ humans, both East and West, because it's an image of divinity that includes so much more than just straight male or straight female concepts, forms, mental forms, and straitjackets. But as important and beautiful as that function is, there is even greater purpose, because in every psyche there is both yin and yang, and within yin there is the core of yang, and within yang there is the core of yin. And so much of what is wrong with where we are and what we have become socially and culturally on this planet is a result of this split down the middle of psyche. It is more than just a divide between masculine and feminine. It is also a divide between light and dark, nature and spirit, life and death. This great split has driven us mad. So I place Adinari here in this context and suggest that the image and what it represents shouldn't be so obscure. Arguably, it should be one of the central images of divinity. Indeed, it is a worthy candidate for one of the principal avatar icons of the 21st century. Yes, we need to exalt Adinari along with the great triune goddess as bringers of a new age in consciousness for all. There are many false memes about gender in relation to the spiritual path. For example, that the divine nature is masculine and that the feminine is somehow inferior, and that also that LGBTQ orientations are somehow unnatural. We must dispel all of these hurtful lies, the mysteries of gender and all its permutations are an aspect of our primal reality, and as such, they are sacred. So what I want to exercise, I want to, if you'll indulge me, what I want us to do. So the ascendancy of the feminine, the problem with men, toxicity, the toxic masculinity issue. I propose to you that at this point, we don't even know what a man really is. What do I mean by that? And the best way that I can communicate what I'm trying to say is if I take this image of Adhinar and say, well, let's look at it instead of as an icon projected, an icon of an avatar and a fairy tale that goes with the story of this avatar. We take it and say, this is a map of the primal human psyche. Adinari is actually a depiction of the primal human psyche. So what would the primal human psyche, rising above another one of these false dualities, the idea of man and woman fixed. Man and woman fixed, right? And what would if Adhinari was actually a depiction, a mapping, if you will, of a human consciousness, every human consciousness. So let's just say these are if you know Words of Power, New Language for New Reality, know my crazy drawings. These are a few more crazy drawings. So that's just what it is. So this, I say, is a healthy human psyche in its primal state. By that I mean this is Adinari, but depicted in a different way. So it's not really, you could look at it as the hemispheres of the brain, hemispheres of the psyche, but really a being is more than just you would say the belly, the heart, and the brain. So let's see them all as one structure, and this structure has two hemispheres. And we broke up that table of erroneous correspondences. So I didn't make them yin and yang, black and white, because that's a different dimension of energy and reality. This is about the human psyche. So the male, for expediency, I made blue, and the female, for expediency, I made pink. But you see, the brain, the hemispheres of being, of psyche slash soma are in two: the pink, the female, the blue, the male. And inside of each, just like in the yin and yang, there's a little dot of the yin inside the yang, and a little dot of the yang inside the yin, but they're always fixed, they're always counterbalanced, they're always equidistant, they're always at the center. But I want you to think of these instead as like hurricanes of the feminine inside the male hemisphere of psyche, and a hurricane of the male hurricane of the male psyche moving inside the feminine hemisphere of our psyche. And you see how the lines, it's not a full circle, but they're alternating. The outline of the circumference is outline blue, pink, blue, pink, blue, pink, because it's not fixed. It's moving, it's dynamic, and through the center it's not fixed, it's moving and dynamic. Both the fullness of feminine in the psyche and the fullness of masculine in the psyche, irregardless of the body, regardless of all the psychological structures that evolve from one's karmas and from one's social surroundings, just the primal human psyche. Now, if you will, I want to indulge me. This is my image of the male, quote, male psyche after 3,000 to 5,000 years of patriarchy. So once again, this is the healthy human psyche in its primal state, drawn in my very poor way. This is the quote male unquote human psyche. Yeah, the male in quotes psyche after 3,000 to 5,000 years of patriarchy. So see the blue hemisphere, the male hemisphere of the psyche, its mass has shrunk. Its mass has shrunk to almost, well, not half of its fullness, but significant portion of it is just white, just dead zone. The male itself has shrunk, and the feminine half, the feminine hemisphere of the psyche is almost gone. It's like almost none of it, and the rest is dead zone, right? And there's not enough mass of blue for a little pink hurricane to go around its side of, and there's nowhere near enough mass of pink for a blue hurricane to move around inside of. So there's no dynamism at all. There's almost a complete absence of the feminine power of psyche in this male psyche after 3,000 to 5,000 years of patriarchy. And consequently, there's much less mass of energy and power to the male half of the psyche. It's shrunk because it has the dynamic of its interaction with the other half, the other hemisphere of itself is gone. This is a problem. It's a social problem, psychological problem, political problem, evolutionary problem, a problem of civilizations. That's what I mean by what we don't really know what a man is by this time in evolution, because you've been robbed of half of your own being. And you've been robbed of half of your own being. Now, I didn't draw the female psyche after 3,000 to 5,000 years of patriarchy because I thought that would be presumptuous. And I'm just focusing right now, right here, on the problem with men and of toxic masculinity, and showing by focusing on this the sublime importance of the ascendancy of the feminine for all humans, however they identify themselves in terms of gender and whatever physical vehicles they are moving in. So that's what I mean when I say at this point we don't really even know what a man is. So some radical remedies. So when I say the ascendancy of the feminine, the first radical remedy, hashtag smash the patriarchy. I mean literally smash the patriarchy in economy and politics and science and culture and religion. Smash the patriarchy. And for every Charlie Rose that falls, a Christiana Amanpour takes its place. I don't know if you saw the story, but the female head of the Central Intelligence Agency has appointed female heads of each of the directorates within the Central Intelligence Agency. There's the clandestine services, science and technology, intelligence and support for directorates. Each one is headed by a woman, and the director of the CIA is a woman. Putting ideology aside, putting the geopolitical realities of our world aside, this is a profound shift. There are more women in Congress than ever in our history, and this just happened a few months ago. Irregardless, we're not talking about politics here, we're talking about evolution. Irregardless of ideology, this is a difference. There will always be problems, but they will be handled incrementally in different ways. And this incremental difference will take on a life of its own. And this is an important element of the great shift. This ascendancy of the feminine in all aspects of human life and commerce and activity, and a dimension of this ascendancy is literally smashing the patriarchy, replacing men in power with women in power. And the nature of those power structures will change just by, I'm not being simplistic, but that will be an important agent of change, just that shift. So the second one is to ditch the notion of the divine masculine. Most generally speaking, perhaps it's a sensitive subject for some of you, but I'm going to, as I suggested, we don't really know what a man is. So if we don't really know what a man is after 3,000 to 5,000 years of patriarchy, I suggest to you we don't know what divine masculine is, because that's predicated on what? On what we know about being, what masculine is, what being a man is, and that we know by this point in our journey in this world. Something's gone really wrong with that. It's missing half of an equation, an essential equation, the crux of its own psyche. So it's really, I think, a time to take the romantic notion of the divine masculine and those who hide behind it and those who project romantically on it. Just take that notion, gently put it on the shelf, in the back, in a shoebox, and let it rest for, I don't know, 100 years, 1,000 years. We'll know when it's time to address it again, but I submit to you, it will never have the life that it has now, and the life that it has now is profoundly warped and profoundly perverse. The third radical remedy that I want to propose to you, and yes, I'm being tongue-in-cheek, but I'm really not being tongue-in-cheek. And the third suggestion I have for us is no more male spiritual teachers. No more male spiritual teachers. I know that's going to press some buttons, but I'm serious. Maybe in 100 years, maybe in 1,000 years, I don't know how long it will be, but because by then they won't be male teachers. We as a species will be different. We will look at ourselves differently, experience ourselves differently, approach each other differently, align differently, interact differently. We will be different. We will be more fuller expression of our primal reality, Adhanari, in its fullness, right? And certainly no more male tantric teachers, or at least give me that no more male neo-tantra teachers. I'm serious about this. Maybe for a century, maybe for a millennium. I'm sorry if that's going to put some people out of business. But no more male teachers. This isn't the time for male teachers. I'm just a friend. And I share what I have with my friends. I can teach yoga. Yoga is a methodology. Yoga is a technology. You can impart a technology. You can impart a methodology. You can be a friend to people. You can serve with the bodhisattva principle in your living simply by being human. But being human is living by the bodhisattva principle. No more male teachers. The teacher's role, to the extent that we have teachers, should be taken on by women while we go through this great shift, the ascendancy of the feminine. This is the way it has to be. And men who are aligned with this evolutionary necessity, this evolutionary demand, should live in service and support to that shift. And that's how I try to lead my, that's how I try to go in my journey. No more male teachers. And really, we're evolving beyond the whole concept of teacher anyway. And increasingly, as we move deeper into the 21st century, all of us will be relating to each other. We can pass on a technology that we've learned and like a skill that we can pass on to somebody. But the guru dimension to teaching. Guru just means truth. The guru dimension of teaching will be just an expression of our humanity as friends, as allies, as parents and lovers to each other, not as teachers, not as gurus. That's an old concept, and it's a misunderstanding of an old concept. And even during the millennia of patriarchy, there have been other ways. The other ways to teach and other ways to be, and examples of it in every tradition. But now is the time to really make this shift. No more male teachers, and certainly no more male tantra teachers. And the final radical remedy that I have is what a real men's workshop would look like. So I suggest to you that instead of 20 men going off into the woods and sitting in a circle and drumming together and sharing their experiences from that shrunken, I'm going to show it to you again. "20 men in the woods with this male psyche after 3,000 or 5,000 years of patriarchy, trying to understand what is supposed to happen over here, with not even understanding what's happened here." That's not my idea of what a men's workshop might be like as we make this great shift. I would propose to you that it would make more sense. 20 men sign up for that workshop. Each of those 20 men goes with a circle of 19 women. One man and 19 women go off into the woods for however long the workshop was going to be, 2 weeks, whatever, go off into the desert, go off into retreat. One man with 19 women. And that man gets to listen to their conversation, gets to listen to their experiences, gets to listen to their wisdom, gets to understand their neurosis, gets to listen to them share their neurosis, their wounds, their healing journeys, and try to understand, try to reactivate, because all those, that dead zone is not lost forever, except in the case of the pathological. That dead zone can be reconstituted. It can come slowly alive again. And so a men's workshop to me wouldn't be 10, 20 men in the wilderness beating on drums and trying to understand what they don't have the psychical capacity to understand because of 5,000 years of patriarchy. Instead, one man with 19 women listening to the reality of women's mysteries, listening to the reality of women's suffering and women's path of healing, and receiving women's reflection of what man is and isn't, and then let that man sort out for himself, take that download and sort out for himself what it means, what the implications would be. So there is my four-point plan of radical remedies for the problem with men. And this is another Adhinari. I love this Adhinari. It's from Chola Dynasty. It's from the Cleveland Museum of Art. I love that because it's got, as my friend Jonathan pointed out to me, it's got like the Jedi symbol on it. It's like the Adhinari with the Jedi symbol. That is part 4 of 5. I'm going to close this down. I have one more part to go, and that part is on the nature of magic, magical beings, and the structure of the magical world. So I'm going to close this down. I'm going to open again in a few moments, and that will be the final segment of this talk. I hope you can join us, and if not, hope you finish up watching it at another time, since these will remain online.